I've never seen this video before, so I don't know what to expect. I think that's better. Yeah.
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, we're continuing our Final Fantasy XIII retrospective and putting some respect on its not so good name. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as I said in our first retrospective for Final Fantasy XIII, the first entry in the series, this is not a video designed to tell you you're wrong if you dislike these games. I just think a lot of the hate and criticism for this trilogy is far overblown.
I'm watching
as
something.
Someone who really genuinely does enjoy all three games in the series, I wanted to focus on each individually and highlight why they're not as bad as many think they are.
Yeah, so one of the big things that I hate about like the FF13 Discord is that, yeah, it's widely overblown. Everyone says it's the worst one, and I feel like people in general who say that the 13 saga is the worst like aspect of Final Fantasy in general, I think it's literally people who have never played the games, like ever. It's very frustrating.
And when you walk away from this video, the goal is not to go, oh, I love them, I'm going to go play them, just to understand why people like myself and others really do enjoy games like Final Fantasy XIII-2 we're going to be talking about in today's video.
Okay, I'm just going to say right now, Final Fantasy XIII-2, probably one of the best. Like, if you're talking about modern Final Fantasies, it's probably one of the ones that does a callback to classic Final Fantasy the best. And what I mean by that is that it has so many traditional Final Fantasy mechanics, as well as a very open story that you can kind of choose how you want to tackle.
Now, keep in mind that we will continue to play other Final Fantasy games here on the channel. Fret not. We're working on something for Final Fantasy XII, so don't worry. We'll have a So I Played for that soon enough, so keep an eye out for that. But otherwise, I wanted to continue to throw it back with these 13 retrospectives in the meantime. One thing I want to make clear before we begin in earnest and talk about everything in the complete in-box experience, you're not going to see cutscenes in this video. So what we learned with our first Final Fantasy XIII video is Square Enix is a bunch of weirdos, and they decided to copyright claim our video on Final Fantasy XIII.
Square Enix copyright claims the shit out of their Final Fantasy XIII stuff. I don't know why. The first ever time I did a FF13 live stream, I think it was like in 2019. I mean, no, 2018. 2018 or 2017, like where I did like my first attempt at like real Let's Play. And bro, let me tell you, almost every single video got copyright claimed for either video or audio. I think at the end of it, I got like 90 Square Enix emails, and I responded. I did the effort. I responded to every single one of them that I could get to. And let me see if I can see it. Okay, I actually have to put in Final Fantasy. Oh, I actually have to put Square Enix. I don't think I have them anymore. Let me see, 2022. But yeah, I basically copyrighted. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. Holy shit. Let me see if we can see this. It was 2019. Look at all these emails copyright claimed, and it doesn't stop. Like, it just keeps on going. They're all copyright claimed. Okay, some of them are from Final Fantasy XIV related. Okay, these are back. This is 2018. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. I can probably scroll through this, and it's nothing but just copyright claimed emails. It is so bullshit. Like, you want people to play your game. Okay, you don't want them to stream it. And this was during an era where people didn't want you to stream your game. But it's so ridiculous, dude, because it's like, what do you want? Do you want me to play your game or not? Okay, you want me to play your game. Why do you refuse to let me enjoy your game? Like, it's one of the most ridiculous things ever. All right, give me 1 second. I need a BRB. Forgot my drink.
7 different times. We edited around it as much as we could, and eventually we got the all clear on a copyright claim, only to, when it went live after 24 hours, get claimed again. So it's really weird of Square Enix to claim the content of A game that is honestly widely criticized, but it's apparently pretty common thanks to the cutscenes. So if you're wondering why you're seeing mostly gameplay, that is why. We are trying to avoid that. We would like to make this a living here, so we're not going to put the cutscenes in, I guess. It stinks, I agree, but it is what it is, and I want to celebrate these games regardless. So with that, if you're new here, into retrospectives, nostalgia.
He said celebrate. Celebrate. Let's go. FF13 Redemption Arc starts now.
Content and throwback reviews. Consider subscribing. Now let's talk about my favorite in the trilogy, Final Fantasy 13. I love
the best one, best music. I hope he mentions the music
cover here, because look at that. You see how it kind of holographic reflects back at you? I love that. I hope the camera's picking it up. Otherwise, I just look stupid for like 10 seconds there. Anyway, the back says, change the future. Catastrophic events have been set into motion. Within the timeline corrupted and the future clouded in uncertainty, two will rise to right the wrongs. The Final Fantasy 13 saga continues in this adventure that transcends both time
Man
and
knows what I'm talking about.
Screenshots here.
Look at this. Look at this.
Not much else to be said. Now, every time this game's brought up, they go, oh, Final Fantasy 13 was so bad, and yet we got 3 games in the trilogy. Why? This game is why. It is so good.
It's so good. So good.
By the way.
Good villain.
Okay.
Good music.
On the right, pretty plain. Something that you may find interesting and of note here is it's a single disc. If you watch the Final Fantasy 13 retrospective, it was 3 discs. So they found out how to compress the content onto 1 disc. Good for Square Enix on that.
Not only did they compress the content, but they also increased the resolution to 720p. The original FF13 was released, I want to say, like for the Xbox in 568p. I want to say that's what it was. So they compressed it better. They understood the hardware better, and then everything was good.
It does come at the sacrifice of some of its visuals. It's not as beautiful of a game as the original Final Fantasy 13, but I think because of the gameplay differences, people are totally fine with that.
Okay, so one thing I want to add to that too is that while it may not be as like beautiful, I guess, as the original FF13, I think FF13 in general has a really strong art style. What happens with FF13-2 is that not only does it have a strong art, not only does it reuse that art style, so you're seeing a lot of it again, they try to remix some aspects of it, so it's not as cool as witnessing FF13 for the first time. You're seeing a lot of like remixed things, like I mentioned earlier with like walking through Brescia.
Anyway, let's take a look at the manual, which is not only thick, but very colorful.
And gives you a lot of backstory.
So what they do first and foremost is they have a summary of the story. This is going to be important for those of you who want to skip the first game. I don't really recommend it. Again,
no.
I think the criticism for the first game in the trilogy is overblown, but I understand that the lore can be confusing. And one of the goals out the gate of this game is just to make sense of everything and kind of streamline the terminology and explain to the player what happened and what you're doing in this entry.
The other crazy thing too is that I think the events of Final Fantasy 13-2 seem so much bigger than the events in the first Final Fantasy 13, but the events in the first Final Fantasy 13 are needed to contextualize a lot of what's happening in the sequel. So while 13 as a game might not be as important to the sequel as a lot of people think it might need to be, the context of which you're given, that is what like really highlights the story.
And I think they do a really good job of it. But a lot of people couldn't get through the first game, so why play the second game? And the second game, I think, is the reason why so many people understand the first game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that was me. I bought Final Fantasy 13-2, played it for like a little bit more than what I got here, and then I was just like, they're talking way too much about Final Fantasy 13 for me to understand it. Went back to play the first one, came back to the second one.
And hear about Noel, Sarah, Lightning, their importance, and afterwards it's a bunch of mechanical explanations boiling down to the main menu all the way to Historia Crux, one of the most defining mechanics of this game, how encounters in the field work, interacting with people, the Moogles.
Hey, I might like this guy. He's got a Mass Effect 3 floor mat or desk mat. I don't know what you call that. That's pretty dope. Actually, I don't know if it's Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect,
Of course,
but
in the
yeah.
field, we're going to talk about serendipity later on in the video. Battles, that's why these manuals are so thick, because no one really understands the paradigm shift system. We'll talk about that as well. But it's just a full breakdown of all the roles that you can assemble within the paradigm system, leveling up, the reward system, Crystarium, so on and so forth. So just all the mechanics, no real character bios outside of the opening ones, and then the merch store with some figures. Lightning doesn't look really that great. Sarah does look great, though, and this is coming out spring 2012. It's crazy to think how long that it's actually been. In fact, really, we're nearing the 10-year anniversary, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's your complete box experience for Final Fantasy 13-2. Get it on 360, back compat, FPS boosted,
Yes.
Series X enhanced,
King.
looks great, runs great, about 20 buckaroos, call it a day. Okay, why is this, Matty, one of your favorite Final
All time.
Fantasy games?
All time.
Come on in. Allow me to explain. So, mechanically speaking,
It's
this game
dense.
is a massive improvement from 13. As I mentioned in my retrospective for that game is flawed. We all know it's flawed.
Okay, yeah, 13 is very flawed, but like, look at the comment section. I still believe Kai is one of the best villains. I mean, he's a better villain than most Final Fantasy villains. I think he's got like real reasoning for the most part. It's honestly my top 5 Final Fantasy games, probably 4th behind 6, 4, and 9. But I don't really hear much positivity. I'm really happy. Yeah, awesome. This guy has good taste. He likes all the good ones too. This is such a great game. 13 trilogy is very solid. Yeah. 13 being the best in a while. Yeah, it's like such a stands rise up because it really is such a like classic experience. Best OSTs. Yeah, this fucking Paulie Walnuts gets it. Paulie Walnuts, I bet he has a lot of bitches because he gets it. He gets it. He has that dog in him. So glad 13-2 trilogy is finally getting the reevaluation. Yes, thank God. Really don't like 13, but 13-2 easily one of the best. Kai's is one of the best villains. You know what? I haven't like seen too much. Everyone's saying that Kai's is a really good villain. I don't remember him being all that cool. I remember thinking that he's like a budget Sephiroth. And I think he's got a great style. I might have to rewatch some of it. All right. By the way, also spoiler alert at this point for FF13 fans. You know, right now I'm streaming it, so you know if this isn't for you, it's not for you.
I'm not going to act like it's this incredible thing, but I feel like Final Fantasy 13-2 really recovered a major fumble for Square Enix, according to many, and made something worthwhile of it. One of the biggest criticisms of Final Fantasy 13 is its linearity. Now, right away in 13-2...
Okay, I just realized I could put it in 720p.
when you enter a new Bodum, it's open.
Super
the camera
open.
can rotate, and you can jump freely.
Yep.
It's such a little thing. I know it's silly to applaud, but
what's crazy is that the jumping doesn't even do much for you in the game. Jumping in Final Fantasy games is like so like a non-topic. Like it doesn't do, you can't access areas you really can't access for the most part. Like every place where you can jump to a new location is highlighted on the floor the same way it was in 13. I guess the only difference is that it's not as restrictive, and that kind of sets the tone for like, oh, by the way, you can kind of jump wherever you want. You want to jump there? You can jump. It's like this. It's like this. Watch. Look at it. Look at me real quick. Now, you're going to ask, can I jump? Final Fantasy 13 will tell you, no, you have to go outside to jump. Final Fantasy 13-2? No, Chad game. This is what Final Fantasy 13-2 does. You can jump. You can jump this way. You can jump behind you. You can jump this way. Hey, you want to jump one more time? All right, we're not going to do a lot of jumping because I fucked up my heel, and I weigh 230 pounds. And let me tell you, when you weigh 230 pounds and you fucked up with your heel, let me tell you, man, shit fucking hurts. So, yeah. But yeah. So I mean, it's not like it's not a game changing thing, but it really, you benefit a lot from it. God damn it, Retro Rebound, you're great. Yeah, you're fantastic, dude. I love this. Look at this. Look how it looks. Damn it, this is hot.
Way the game feels, plays better, and exploration in turn is also better.
By hot, I meant the channel. The channel looks good on my display. He himself, equally as attractive, if not more.
This is a huge difference maker. It makes running around these environments better because Final Fantasy 13 was beautiful because as you're running around all the
Yes,
locales,
it's like a hallway. You see everything.
areas, and there are instances in the game that do open up. Again, I just think it's a situation where people don't go far enough into the game to actually see it because it does take a while to truly open up.
Take a while is such an understatement. It takes like 30 hours. like once you put cutscenes in there, it takes like 30 hours.
Hallway structure. But right off the get-go, here with 13.2, there's diverging paths. It's much more wide open. They did a better job making this game fun to explore. And again, when you can jump, you can rotate the camera, traditional third-person controls, makes a big difference here. And you can understand people's frustration why it was missing. The other thing I really liked was how they handled preemptive attacks, how you can engage in battles. So in 13, you would just run into enemies, and if you made contact with them from behind, a preemptive strike would occur.
Also, that preemptive strike in like OG 13 was ass. Like, it wouldn't always register, and I guess some enemies have their quote-unquote backs somewhere else because, like, the amount of times I would go to the back of a Lobo and it wouldn't register, I was like, okay, guy. All right, you fucking dick.
Same thing happens here, but what they have is the Mog clock. So what happens is once an enemy comes near you, you'll see a clock appear, and based off the timing in which you engage
more like the Mog Glock, am I right?
in combat, if you do it quick and you get it in the green, you'll have a preemptive strike and you'll hit their stagger bar and you'll have better advantage for combat, whereas
no. Oh, where was I?
10-year intervals plays better, and exploration which you engage in combat, if you do it quick and you get it in the green, you'll have a preemptive strike and you'll hit their stagger bar and you'll have better advantage for combat, whereas if it gets in the red and they hit you, you'll be at a disadvantage. So I just like how they handled the quality of life enhancements to this game compared to the first 13, whether it be preemptive attacks or exploration. I think gameplay-wise, this was a really strong rebound for Square Enix. So off the rip, this isn't the first 10 minutes of the game, right? You see all this immediately, you're like, okay, what else do you have for me? Is this just an improved 13?
Yeah, that's how I felt. Like when I went back to play 13.2 after playing 13, that's actually how I felt. It made the game so hard to drop, especially when you add the Pokemon system.
In a lot of ways, yes, but it defines itself with its own mechanics. These are things like live triggers. I think this is cool because it allows me.
Live triggers are so cool because they're so interactive, and I wish more Final Fantasy games would do them.
Me to put myself in the shoes of the characters and make dialogue choices. Now, this isn't like Fallout where you're going to have
or Mass Effect
and diverging story paths. There are these things that they call paradox endings, and we'll get into Historia Crux in a little bit, but some of these paradox endings are unlocked through these live trigger events. But these live triggers, based off choices you make, will give you rewards. You'll get certain items down the timeline based off what you're saying to other characters. And I always found this to be really cool. The ability to, when Noel's talking about his past, choose to push him a little
fucking hate Godot
bit and ask about it, maybe be a little more upfront, or choose not to. What would I do in that situation? It just adds a little bit to the conversations and makes it feel less like another complaint of Final Fantasy 13, a movie. It feels.
Oh, he said, "Oh, gee, thanks, but I'm his right-hand man," and then he runs away. Yo, Godot is such a fucking he's such a loser. God, LeBro should be the leader. But yeah, one thing I like about these life triggers is that since they're not like crazy impactful, you can go with a goofy answer if you want. It's great. It's like it really does feel like it fits anyone's personality.
It feels nice to just be able to sit there and say, what would I do here? And it keeps it simple. Doesn't try to do too much. So I like this system a lot. It's unique. Another thing that's important to talk about when talking about Final Fantasy 13-2 is, as you saw on the back of the box, it mentioned time and space. So one thing that you're going to find in this world are these things called fragments. Fragments are things that effectively are keys to the past. And you'll get them through beating certain boss monsters. When you do so, you can go into your catalog and you can look through the lore and find out like what time period did this enemy come from. And it unlocks a lot of really cool options. Now, speaking of combat, another way I feel like they did a better job here in the quality of life department for Final Fantasy 13-2 was the roles. I liked the roles in Final Fantasy 13. I just don't think at times they were the best explained.
No, and Final Fantasy 13 has this issue as well, where because basically the paradigm system is you get to rotate which characters do which jobs, so you can fit certain needs, which means that maybe you want a combination of characters, but those characters need to be in very specific jobs if you want to run with that party. And that's great because it allows you to kind of really experiment. And as you get late game, different characters can unlock different paradigms. I mean, I guess when the original 13, all the characters can unlock all the jobs, all the roles essentially, but there's still some are going to be better at them than others. So like, in the original 13, let's say Snow would still probably be a better Ravager than someone like Fang probably. I'm just taking a wild guess because Snow already had those Ravager bonuses, and this game functions the same way. But the biggest difference is that these fucking games do a piss poor job of explaining that to you and explain to you the importance of the Sentinel role. And I feel like I always get back to the Sentinel role because the Sentinel role is the tank role, which is very important for fights. You need a tank. You need someone to absorb damage while you do shenanigans in the background. And these games do not give you a good explanation of how to properly use the tank, and the tank abilities aren't always well. And every time I watch a live stream, whether I'm watching like I don't know, like TB or some other small streamer that's playing FF13 or FF13-2, because I do like watching small streamers that play these games, they always get confused at the roles when it really should not be that difficult. It should not be that difficult, and it sucks that it keeps happening.
Whereas in 13.2, let's say I go to Sentinel, I can feel that role a lot more than I could in 13. So in Sentinel, you receive reduced magical and physical damage. That's nice, and you can do that through certain abilities in 13.1, but in 13.2, it's like by default, all these roles have bonuses, and you can just feel them a lot more in this game, where like the paradigm shift system, I think, will click for more people because there's a passive bonus that is constantly occurring, like Ravager, as per usual, is allowing more chain attacks to build up the stagger gauge, Commandos, more of that heavy damage dealing that you do when they are staggered. That's always been there. I just feel like certain roles are a little more prevalent here in this game, and in turn, the combat does feel better. It also streamlines the Crystarium system. So this comes at the sacrifice of some of the slip and slide menus that I love in the first 13, right? Like when you select the equip menu, you see like a slight movie of like Hope talking or Lightning smiling.
Yeah, I love that's such a good little touch. I wish more Final Fantasy games would do that. My issue with the Crystarium system in 13.2, and I don't know if I did it wrong the very kind of first time that I did it, but basically I feel like I locked myself out of a certain moveset and I didn't know how to fix it. So, I don't know if that's gonna happen now, but it is something that I want to fix. Like, I don't know. Like I don't know if you can fix that. I don't know. And when I first played the game, I wasn't all that deep into it, but we'll see. I don't know. Let me listen to freaking retro rebound. Oh my gosh, no, I fucked it.
A better job here in the quality of life. Attacks to burn the combat in the Crystarium. It's not
retro rebound. I want to make sure. I wonder if he says his name on here. Mr. Matty plays. Oh, yeah, we should follow him all. We're gonna probably follow him all over the tracks. This guy, like, I love his video concept so far. It's great. Look at him. Look at that. He's thirsty, just like me. He's just like me for reals, for reals.
Ubisoft. Is there a company that is?
Let me tell you about Ubisoft, man. That company sucks. All the sexual harassment charges, the company could not change.
Not a bunch of pathways, kind of like we saw in Final Fantasy X, and Final Fantasy 13 did a less than version of that. It's just, what role do you want to increase? They have on the corner of the screen what abilities you will get when you're leveling up. Like, you'll unlock Aurora at this point. You'll unlock Frost Strike at this point for this role. And it just, again, keeps it simple, keeps it easier to understand. And I think for those who were confused about what the paradigm shift system was and what moves you would have access to, this makes more sense of that. I got it with 13 off the bat, but I understand again why it was kind of confusing for people. So
It
that's
was very
another reason
confusing.
why I like it. It streamlines a lot of things that people had issues with.
Wait, I forgot. I
The
need to
first
put the
game.
HC.
And to me, I don't sit there and endlessly defend the first game. I think it was flawed, but I think it just made the first game even better. A lot of things have not dramatically shifted in 13.2. What has been a dramatic shift is the party structure for some.
Yes, I love this system.
The slander I ever see for 13.2 is there's only 2 party members. There's only 2 party members. You only get to play as Noel and Sarah. But 13 wasn't like that. It's like,
dude, I feel like people that say that there's only 2 party members played like maybe the first 2 hours of the game and then just dropped. Like, and they're like, I'm good.
for 90, I'd say really realistically a number, 70% of 13, you are running around in duos, right? It's like Lightning and Hope.
Yep.
You know, Vanille and Saz. Like they're all running around in duos. Sometimes
That's a really good point because in Final Fantasy 13, you literally, because the story takes up like half the whole game, like you are literally stuck in duos the whole time. And in Final Fantasy 13-2, it's like a Fox duo.
they interchange and the game feels really good when they're trios, and later in the game, of course, you get the full party and that's all nice. But literally 13-2 is doing more of what 13 did, but people try to act like 13 was providing full parties when it never was. What happens in 13-2, which I really like, because one of my favorite things about this game is it's unique and it's bold. It doesn't follow a formula, just like 13 didn't follow a formula.
Yep.
It's trying to make its own path, and I respect that because I think they did a good job with it. So in 13-2, they're like,
and not only that, following its own path. You know what that screams like? Like the theme of the game, which is like, you know, you're branded. What do? Do you follow like what you have to do? No, you carve your own path.
have Noel and Sarah be the set characters that are always in your party. And then the third character is a creature, and you catch these creatures out in combat. And I think this is also great. So they'll each have feral link abilities, and you can infuse the abilities of other monsters into the monster you have in your party. You can nickname them. You can customize their appearance. I love this. It's like Pokemon, but inside Final Fantasy. And it was at this moment when I played this in high school for the first time. For those who don't know, and it's funny, right? You'll look at my channel now, and you'll be like, this guy loves JRPGs. He
gets it. This guy gets it.
I'll give you a little story. So have you ever met a person who goes, I hate anime. Anime's dumb.
Yes.
And you go, well, do you like Pokemon? Do you like Dragon Ball Z? And they go, yeah, dude, that stuff's fire. It's like, well, congrats. You like anime, right?
Yeah, it's like, man.
So that was me with JRPGs. It was, oh, I can't stand them. They're for weirdos and weebs. And they're like, well, do you like Kingdom Hearts? Which I did. Do you like Pokemon? Which I did. Yes, I do. Why? Okay, congrats. You like JRPGs. Then you play Final Fantasy 13-2. To me, this was my JRPG
Bro, I wonder if his video got flagged for that. No.
awakening, believe it or not. Of course, I'd say technically speaking, you know, Kingdom Hearts 2 was. But to me, I was a Kingdom Hearts fan and I was a Pokemon fan. I was not a JRPG fan. It wasn't until high school that I played Final Fantasy 13-2 and I went, these are really fun games. And I love what they're doing here.
You know what's crazy about the whole JRPG thing is that a lot of people don't like it because they're like, oh, it's too much menu navigation, it's too much this. And now we have like battle royale games where a good amount of the game is like, oh, shit, I fucking did it. It's like inventory management. And not only inventory management,
Kingdom Hearts,
but then also like leveling up your battle pass. It's like, I feel like, and then not only that, but even if you take it like one generation before with like, with the PS4 and the Xbox one generation, like you see games that just start using leveling systems and crafting systems, but they're just shooters, and it's interesting because, you know, people say they may not like JRPGs or they don't like that term, but so many games now have so many of those elements just integrated and intertwined, and it's really hard to now take that away from those games. Like if you were to play the current Call of Duty, I bet you would have some kind of crafting system and some kind of leveling up system. If you were to play Apex Legends has this with battle sheet with like battle with the armor. where in a match you shoot enough armor, your armor gets leveled up. Like it's like these systems are fun. It's fun to see progression. It's cool seeing your characters get better, stronger. I just hate how there's like all this backlash around it.
Do you like Pokemon? Which I did. Yes, I do. Why? Okay, congrats. You like JRPGs. Then you play Final Fantasy 13-2. To me, this was my JRPG awakening, believe it or not. Of course, yes. I'd say technically speaking,
King.
You know, Kingdom Hearts 2 was. But to me, I was a Kingdom Hearts fan and I was a Pokemon fan. I was not a JRPG fan. It wasn't until high school that I played Final Fantasy 13-2 and I went, these are really fun games. And I love what they're doing here. And that's what led me to go back to 13, love that, and then love on some Lightning Returns.
And that's what I did too. That's absolutely what I did.
I really do have to thank 13-2 for kind of being the core of why I love JRPGs.
The GOAT.
Which I don't think is a take you'd expect to hear, right? As I sit here and I rave about Persona and Trails, this was the gateway. And I know that's kind of ironic given the time paradox that this game's based off, but it literally was. I played it, I loved it, and I went, wow, I want more of that. And I went on a whole JRPG spree, and that hasn't ended since. So 13-2 is that good, right? A lot of people look at me and say I have some educated takes on JRPGs. Do you still respect that? Do you still respect that when it started right here? More quality of life enhancements, multiple accessories. I like this.
Yes.
Originally, you could wear 2 right off the bat.
I was literally just talking about this earlier in the stream.
Customization in this game. But we talked about time enough. Now we got to get into the mechanic that makes 13-2 amazing. A lot of you started coming in when I made my Chrono Trigger video. And one thing that I noticed a lot of people...
Dude, I'm not happy. I'm happy he made this video. I mean, I'm not happy. I'm not going to lie. I'm happy he made this video because he's got 85,000 subscribers. And that's like potentially 85,000 people. How many views does this have? 28,000 people that like... that I know have... maybe a portion of them have watched this for the first time. They're like, I want to try this now. It's good.
Were messaging about to me was that the time travel mechanics in JRPGs were not introduced to me in Chrono Trigger, which I played for the first time last year. It was introduced to me
Grand Quest
again in this.
Oh, no, okay.
And obviously when I played Chrono Trigger, if you haven't watched that video, go ahead and check it out. It kind of turned my world upside down because my introduction to time travel in JRPGs was this and then Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology. Those were the 2 JRPGs that I played that I went, wow, like this is such a cool idea. Diverging paths and the storylines through timelines and seeing different locations, or rather the same place but in different time periods, is such a novel concept. I love this. And you go to Chrono Trigger, you're like, wow, is this really my favorite JRPG now? Because it created all the tropes that so many of them followed. This one includes.
That's how I felt watching anime and then watching the anime Akira and then going like, oh, so many tropes started with this. Like every trope. And it's such a cool kind of feeling when you rediscover like why you like something.
Included, I admit that, but this was my introduction to time travel in JRPGs, and I loved it. So there's this thing called Historia Crux. This is where the paradox endings play a factor for some of the side content there.
And it has an amazing song. Please mention the music. Mention the music.
Look for artifacts in the main story of the game. When you get artifacts, they serve as sort of a key that unlocks different portals into different periods of time. And each location has like 2 to 3 time periods. So you can see in its present day for Lightning, but Noel, one of the main characters, is from the future. So you can see what he experienced. And it allows you to kind of connect to the lore that they're talking about, which again is another issue with Final Fantasy 13. It was like they talk about Fal'Cie and Lucy, and it's a while before you really lay your eyes on what that actually is when it materializes before you. Whereas Noel's just not a storyteller. He's actually a guy who can show you what he's been through, what he's lived through, what life is like for him.
He's still kind of a little bitch though.
In the future.
But he gets better as the game progresses, but I do dislike Noel at the beginning of the game. I think he's a cool character for people that are new to Final Fantasy. But I think if you've been playing Final Fantasy games for a while, like me, well, I don't even, me, I would say for a little bit. But like, you just kind of roll your eyes like, okay, guy. Show me, tell me, hold my hand. Yes, lead me, mysterious man.
You can go back to the past. You can go to the present day. It's such a great mechanic. But what I love about this, and just like Chrono Trigger, it takes complete inspiration from it, but this is a big budget 3D game. It's not as easy to make different assets for the same area over and over and over.
They reused assets from the first one.
We can goof off and go to the past, go to the future, and do all these side quests that involve leaping through time and interacting with the environment. But doing it on a 3D area is not cheap, and it was done really well. So another, probably the lead reason why I love this game is that.
Yep.
Now, another thing a lot of people didn't like about
music.
Final Fantasy 13.
Please tell me the music.
Again,
Come on, talk about the music.
Is like side content, giving you more of that type of
Dude, this game has so much side content too.
stuff. So what they have is, as I mentioned earlier, this casino called Serendipity, and it's just, you know, it's just a fun little distraction.
The boy.
It's got golden saucer energy from Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah,
right?
big golden saucer energy.
Mini games, chocobo racing, playing cards, all that stuff. But I just like that this game really embraced the criticism of Final Fantasy 13. There's no ego with 13-2. That's what I love about it. It's a perfect response. It's amazing.
Not only is there no ego with 13-2, but one of the things I feel like Square did post 13-2 is that they really leaned into the Final Fantasy tropes. I feel like with Final Fantasy 13 being the first game of like the quote-unquote HD era, and I think you saw this a little bit with Final Fantasy 12, where they were trying to make certain tropes a bit more serious. I feel like you could really see it in the monster design, and you really see it in 13 with the monster design. And I feel like with Final Fantasy 13 too, they like really leaned into, I don't want to say cringe because it's not cringe, but the cheese of the Final Fantasy series. And I feel like you're seeing that so much with 15. You saw it with 14 online. And then we're probably also going to see that with 16. As serious as 16 is making all of its trailers seem, I feel like it's going to have that fun Final Fantasy cringe. And that's one thing I think Final Fantasy 13-2 did really well, is that they really like leaned into it. They're like, oh, you like the Chocobo music? Let's make you a Chocobo metal song. Oh, you know, you like Kate Sith? Let's show you what a cool realistic Kate Sith looks like. Because I bet you Kate Sith wasn't in Final Fantasy 13 because it looked too weird. And then they're like, nah, let's just use that art style. Let's put Kate Sith in there.
Amazing JRPG on its own, but it's also the perfect response to a flawed first entry, and said like, okay, we've addressed this, we've addressed that. And to me, if you're someone who is hating on Final Fantasy 13, if you can't get through it, look up the summary. You owe it to yourself to play this game. It is really good. One thing that I think people will struggle with a little bit is the combat, but I really love paradigm shifts because they're different. They're different. Setting roles for characters, effectively jobs in Final Fantasy, and making it where like you're.
That's what I said earlier in the video.
You're the damage dealer for magic, but wait, we need to have a healer and a defense specialist set up for if we're low on health. Who's going to heal? Who's going to be defensive? Okay, we're going to set lightning for that, Null for that. It's just again
it's great.
Very highly customizable.
And that's my biggest complaint about Final Fantasy 13 is that Final Fantasy 13, you spent so much time fighting compared to other Final Fantasy games. But, and while the paradigm system is customizable, I think it just falters so much with not being able to customize the way you approach a battle in the same way that Final Fantasy 13-2 does. Final Fantasy 13, you can approach a battle so many different ways. We're talking about accessories, weapons, the way you level up your character, your third party member, and the different paradigms you could do that. In Final Fantasy 13, it's a little bit obtuse in how you level up a weapon, so you don't really know how. And then you're often in a duo team versus a trio team through most of the story. And you can't really approach a weapon, a fight until the end game with the amount of customizable. God, I'm losing words. I'm not that good at speaking. You're way better at speaking than I am. Retro rebound. But it's like my biggest complaint of 13 is that they didn't let you customize how you approach a battle and how you fight in a battle enough. I feel like if they were to ever re-release it, all they need to do is that, and then increase the drop rates of monster materials, and it's a banger. 8 out of 10
to a level that I don't think a lot of people have explored. So to me, that's the only obstacle you have to get over, and if you can get over that, you're gonna be fine, because what you'll be treated to is one of the best OSTs ever in a JRPG.
Let's go. He's talking about it. It's in. He's mentioning it. Oops. He's talking about how good it is. That's what I've been saying. This is one of the most banger OSTs of any Final Fantasy game ever. I've been saying this since this game fucking came out. I've been saying it nonstop. Shit, sometimes I even talk about it to coworkers who don't play video games because that's how good it is. That's how good it is. Thank you. Thank you. Fucking feel so goddamn validated right now.
What I love about this game is as you're running around the world, like let's say you're running around New Bodom. And
Okay, I hope
you
he.
have this peaceful track with vocals. This is my introduction to vocals in JRPGs as well.
No, go back. Oh, no, go back.
And I think that's what kind of kickstarted my love for Persona. So I was just like, yo, I love the bops in this game, man.
Yeah, bangers. Not only bangers, but please mention Historic Crooks, Dust Till Dawn, the Bodom song.
You're hearing the New Bodom music, and then an enemy appears near you, and suddenly it goes to this hard, like,
A remix
step. They call it
the aggressive
mix.
Yeah.
Tracks. And it's, you hear them for like a split second, but if you go up online and look it up, you'll see that these are full on like 5-minute tracks, fully vocalized.
This guy gets it. I want this guy to have as many maidens as possible, or the best maidens ever.
Mixed everything.
I don't know, whichever one you're into, but maidens. I want this guy to get them.
It's an absurd level of effort for something you hear for like 2 seconds, but because each song is like 3 to 5 minutes, they make an aggressive mix 3 to 5 minutes because it just seamlessly transitions into that mix when an enemy appears near you, and the game will never know when that'll happen. So they just make a full track constantly for each of the songs on both sides of the spectrum, and I love that. But this OST from the main menu, when you open it up, you're just like, this is gonna be special. And then you hear New Bodom, and then you hear the aggressive mix. Then you hear the paradigm shift battle theme. Bum, 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 bum. So fire. And then you hear the boss music, the screamo. You're like, they're just having fun, man. This game is awesome. So that's Final Fantasy XIII-2 on a gameplay level. Let's summarize the story. No spoilers, of course, because again, my goal is that you can at least walk away respecting it and understanding why people like it. But let's just say you are interested in playing it. I don't want to ruin it for you. What I will say about the story is this. It has Final Fantasy X energy. So you know how the...
Yes.
Titus,
yes.
I guess I pronounced his name wrong for the entire video.
Yes.
Titus. People are saying it's Titus. I say Titus. I don't know if I'm anglicizing
That's what
that or not.
No calls him.
Titus.
No calls him Titus. I mean, fuck. No calls him Caius.
Narrates his adventure in Final Fantasy X, where he sits there and he's like, listen to my story. This may be our last chance. And he's talking about everything he's going through. This game takes a page out of that book, and Sarah reflects on her journey, narrates her journey. I like it. It does it in the same natural way, the monologuing. Some people don't like that in Final Fantasy X. I understand. But for me, I really do like what they did in Final Fantasy X.
I love it because what you get is usually you get a monologue from Lightning when you get to a new world. And then in that world, like during after a cutscene, you'll get a monologue from Noelle or Sarah, and it just feels good. Like it's awesome because you get slightly different POVs on the story, but you know what you get? This is what you get. You get the motivation behind the reasoning of some of these story beats. And that's great because sometimes, especially with games, because there's so much padding with gameplay that, because it's a game and the gameplay has to be there. Sometimes you don't get that until like the last hour when you're in the final boss, but you get that when you go to levels and it feels fucking great. You get the good pacing.
The monologuing, the kind of personal storytelling, and Sarah does the same thing. So you get a little bit of that energy. It does a good job, again, recapping the lore from Final Fantasy XIII and its important parts. It really declutters things. Really, the sort of need-to-knows here are that Noel's 700 years from the future. He's the last of humanity. He has an incredible theme, by the way. And then Lightning is in Valhalla for reasons I won't spoil, based off the first game. And Sarah is kind of struggling to learn what's real, what's fake, what she actually experienced, what she didn't experience, where Lightning is she alive, why is she in Valhalla based off the events of the first game. It can just last on its own. I I really do recommend playing the first game to get a full understanding of when they talk about pulse and they talk about cocoon, what that actually is. And when they talk about the fallacy and the lucy, that terminology still exists here, but they kind of...
Okay, I gotta say it. Someone has to say it. It has to be me. When he says lussy, it's like that ussy meme. And that's all I think about whenever he says lussy. The USSY meme, for anyone asking.
You know, wrap it up. They're like, okay, that chapter's done now. This is Lightning's story in full. And they make it more of a personal driven experience. So if you really hated on the lore in 13, then they really do wrap that up nice and tight. I think they put a bow on it and they kind of move on to the next set, which is a character driven journey and why Lightning is where she is and why Noel is here in Sarah's timeline and what brings them together. It's just a very, again, character driven, emotional story that I adore. And it's really my main gateway outside of Pokemon and Kingdom Hearts to my love for JRPGs. So I really, out of all of them, this was the main reason I wanted to do this trilogy recap is Final Fantasy 13-2.
And what's great about him doing this trilogy recap, retro rebound, is that you play the first game, you're like, okay, because a lot of times when you play a game like 10 years after its release, you do think, oh, I looked at this with rose tinted glasses. Maybe this isn't as fun as what I thought it was, or maybe I made it a bit more fun in my brain. And you know, this kind of goes to show you where he goes like, okay, Final Fantasy 13, it's okay, has its flaws, it's laying the foundation. Final Fantasy 13-2, fantastic, and still holds up to this day, and that's a fucking testament to the people that worked on this game.
Is one of the best JRPGs I have played, and I know that's
yes,
a hot take.
Let's go.
I will
no,
eat it all day.
That's not a hot take.
I
don't care.
The game is great, and I really do recommend you play it again. I would recommend the 360 version.
Yes,
not PC. I would recommend the 360 version. Back compat, Xbox One, Xbox One X, Series X, what have you. It's got FPS boost. It's got enhancements visually. Looks great. Runs great. Awesome game. And with that, I've said my piece. And now it's time for me to get eaten alive in the comments. Although, a lot of you were out there really loving on 13 in the first video. So we'll see if that same energy carries over into 13-2.
Yes, that energy did carry over. Because look at these comments. I've been liking them. Because these are great comments. This guy, they're all good comments. Yes. Was brought me back to a franchise after 10. Didn't really get that. Yeah. Amazing Skies of Arcadia. Yeah, okay. This was the first JRPG liked in ages. Seems like a good iteration. Yeah, like it's this guy. I hope he goes on to play it. Yeah, play it. One of my favorite stories of all time. I know the plot's all over the place. Yeah, man. Finally, 13-2 stands. Rise up. Our time is now. In 2023.
Anyway, that's all I got to say about 13-2. Fire away down below with your thoughts. And with that, I will see all of you in the next Retro Rebound. Peace out.
Okay, I really want to see his take on Final Fantasy 13. Maybe we'll do it during the next stream. I don't know, but that was a great video. That was a good distraction. I thought I wasn't gonna like that. I ended up liking it way more.